course, and this will come as a surprise to everybody, is a collaboration of 3 Rotary districts. Nobody knew about that. Breaking news. 6220, 6250, 6270. Covers all of Wisconsin and a bit more, the UP and various other places. Each of those Rotary districts, you may have heard this, and you may not have, has a district governor. Kind of, run the show for a year. And then go off and relax a little bit and do other things. So we do have current district governors in all 3 of those districts. So it's my pleasure now to introduce them to you. First, Julia Wallace. Julia is a member of the Rotary Club of Green Bay, District 6220. Educated as a psychologist in New York, received her Ph.D. from the State University of New York at Binghamton. Professor of psychology at universities in Iowa and Michigan, and most recently retired after being provost and vice chancellor for academic affairs at UW Green Bay. Served in organizations such as the Lifelong Learning Institute Board, the Nicolay Federated Library System Board, and Scholarships, Inc. She's an avid biker and library aficionado, as she describes it. I think that means she likes to read books. And just recently returned from a Rotary service project in the highlands of Guatemala. Michelle McGrath is past president of the Madison Downtown Rotary Club in District 6250. Michelle is an educator, community leader, 27 years of professional experience. She currently directs the Wanakee Community Cares Coalition in Wanakee, which of course is the only Wanakee in the world. Her job is centered on prevention and mental health. She has a busy summer in store for her, as the day after her district governor year ends, she becomes the district administrator for the Wisconsin Heights School District, which is headquartered in Beijing. She's been a teacher, coach, administrator, college professor, nonprofit executive. She's a published author, speaks nationally about her research on the urgency of youth leadership. She's previously served as district learning facilitator for the past 15 years, and for the past 15 years as Rotary Youth Leadership Awards co-chair. She's married, mom of 4 grown children. Don Griffin is a member of the Rotary Club of Oshkosh in District 6270, a project management and process improvement expert. Draws from a 32-year career in information technology as a software developer. In 2002, he founded his own company focused on cloud-based applications. So if it's not sunny out, that's my understanding. If it's not sunny out, then he can do his stuff. Don became a Rotarian in 2007 after years as I remember my mom being describing herself as a Rotary Ann. Well, Don became a Rotarian in 2007 after years as a Rotary Andy. In support of his wife Marjorie, a past president of the Rotary Club of St. Paul. Don's been a Rotarian in 4 clubs and 5 districts. And I wondered about that. 5 clubs in 4 districts? No, 4 clubs in 5 districts. So what I'm hoping is that there was a realignment of districts and the same club ended up in 2 districts. I'm hoping that's what happened. Otherwise, he's got some explaining to do. He was an early adopter of e-clubs and is a leader in leveraging technology to keep Rotarians engaged and to sustain the good work that they do. These are our district governors, and so please welcome them as a team, as a unified team, beyond belief, as you will recognize, Julia, Michelle, and Don.
I am just incredibly thankful to being here, and I'm thankful for the year I've just been through. It is hard to believe that it's almost a year since we sat on the stage in La Crosse and were introduced when we were district governor-elects. I spent 5,100 miles visiting clubs in our district in Northeast Wisconsin and in the UP. And I just want to make sure that I do a shout out for the Detroit Lions, just in case you think we're just Wisconsin Panther fans. It's been a wonderful experience, and sharing the message from Gordon McAnally that you heard from earlier, creating hope in the world. I talked about creating hope in our clubs. Close to 50% of our clubs are over 100 years old in our District 6220, and we have to see how we're going to keep Rotary alive for another 100 years. Our youngest club is just 5 months old, and I talked to them about how they're going to withstand and make sure that they're there in another 100 years. We talk about creating hope in our communities, and Rotary clubs do. Each of the Rotary clubs that you are part of do create hope in your communities. And then, of course, we create hope in the world. We create hope for Rotary, particularly for polio eradication, which I am passionate about, and we create hope in various other places. While I visited all of the clubs and talked about creating hope in their clubs to make sure that they survive another 100 years, I had the pure pleasure of going to Guatemala March 10th through March 17th and seeing some of the things that Rotary has done to provide pure, clear water for individuals that do not have potable water in their communities or in their homes. And I'm delighted to have that experience firsthand of seeing how Rotary create hopes in the world. And it's wonderful to see my Guatemalan friends here in this room. So again, I want to thank everyone for putting me in this position so that I've had this wonderful year to spend with other Rotarians in our district and around other places in Wisconsin. So thank you very much.
Good afternoon. Vince Lombardi once said, "People that work together will win, whether it's against the complex football defense or the problems of modern society." It is an honor to serve and achieve so many wins beside these incredible humans, my fellow DGs, Julie and Don, the amazing TriCon team, all they've done to just knock it out of the park with this event, and most importantly, my fellow Rotarians. I'm excited to be in Green Bay, home of the legendary Green Bay Packers. So in the spirit of this tailgate, sit back as I take you on a walk through my year at 6250. Besides the legends of Lane, you are going to love this. There's more where that came from. This year, hope was our driver. At International Assembly, Gordon said mental health needs to be a priority, so us DGs said, "Roger's that," and we got to work. There was nothing fuzzy about our 6250 goals. We grew partnerships, one in particular with NAMI, the National Association of Mental Illness. We gathered our youth exchange students, fellow Rotarians, took to the forest, walked along the brooks of Madison on the NAMI walk to eliminate the stigma of mental health. Our mental health task force became our guiding star, providing resources and webinars to our clubs. We took our Rotary friendship exchanges to the max, visiting 4 countries this past year. The white winters came and went and came and went, but we did not falter. We set our mark on saving money, over $30,000 in fact, to create a new financial and administrative model that engaged Rotarians from across the globe. We set another mark, so many marks in the Hall of Fame, on no longer just talking about DEI, but doing the work. We were butlers, offering our service and support to clubs, even cleaning up a few messes. We were tailors, sewing together a patchwork of projects and initiatives. But in conclusion, it has been an honor to serve beside a team of caring and compassionate and sharp as tacks humans, my favorite people, our Rotarians, and our work together will always be a win. It is what legends are made of, and creating hope in our world has been my lifelong. Thank you so much, everyone.
again to reflect on that theme and to celebrate the incredible work that each and every one of you has done, our fellow team members. Hope is a big impossibility, the foundation upon which our aspirations, our dreams, and our actions. One example of action is the caregiver gifts given by the Rotary Club of Plymouth through a district grant. These kits were designed to develop overall well-being in those living with memory loss, fostering engagement activities that strengthen the relationships between caregivers, family, and friends. These create hope by encouraging multi-generations participation through fostering bonds within families and communities. Hope comes from our clubs. As Club President Christian Venegas aptly noted, Rotary clubs bring a rich history of community support. We're excited to build on that great legacy of our predecessor and position ourselves to provide for our community for years to come. Through our clubs, members share their time, their treasure, their talent. Earlier this month, the Rotary Club of Thingsville, Mequon presented a plan for inclusive playground, also known as an all-user playground. President Jack Holmes' words resonate with, "We want this to be a safe experience for all guests of the park, enjoyable for guest parents, grandparents, and caregivers." Hope alone is a flicker in the darkness. It is when hope meets with community that meaningful connections take place. As Susan Scott notes, no single conversation is guaranteed to change the trajectory of a career, a company, a relationship, or a life. Any conversation can. Our conference is designed to facilitate those conversations, igniting the flames of possibility, showing us the magic of what can happen when we work together. So today, we're gathered to celebrate our collective efforts and the hope that we've nurtured. Let us remember that our shared vision of a brighter future is not merely a dream. It is a tangible reality within our grasp. Thank you for your passion, your dedication, your unwavering commitment to creating lasting hope across the world, in our communities, and in ourselves. Together, we truly are making a difference. Let the fun begin.
Thanks, guys. Our leadership team for 23-24, our district governors. If we can just teach them to all get on the same snap count, it'll be just absolutely fine. It is with a kind of a special feeling that I have the privilege of introducing our next special guest. Each year, the president of Rotary International selects representatives to represent him or her and help inspire and motivate those of us who attend these district conferences. And for a year, many years ago, that was an opportunity my dad had after he completed his year as district governor of District 571. That tells you how long ago that was. Didn't have any zeros at the end of the districts back then. This year, RI President Gordon McNally has selected a member of the Rotary Club of Calcutta, Mega City, India, as his representative here to TriCon24. He's an electrical engineer, first-generation entrepreneur. As district governor, he added 450 members and 11 new clubs, a rather worthy goal to try to attain. He's passionate about promoting literacy and serves as a member of the executive body of the Rotary India Literacy Mission. Reading is a challenge for some of us, yes, I know. The Rotary India Literacy Mission. Please welcome President's Representative, RI Director, Honorable Roy Chowdhury.
Good afternoon. Well, friends, Tom has rightly introduced me. My name is Anirudha Chowdhury. I'm serving as a Director of Rotary International for 2023-25, which means I'm serving the board of Gordon McNally, Rotary International President, and Stephanie Check for the 2024-25. I, on behalf of Rotary International President Gordon McNally, would like to welcome each one of you the wonderfully, uniquely conceptualized district conference, TriCon. The first time I'm witnessing this kind of a conference of 3 districts, 6220, 6250, and 6270. A great, unique concept, indeed. And for that, since I'm coming from India, and there is a saying in Sanskrit which goes like this: Vasudevaya Kutumbakam, which means this entire world is one, and we all are all interconnected. And this philosophy has got a sync with a vision statement of Rotary International and Rotary Foundation. The first time, the unified vision statement of Rotary International and Rotary Foundation, which goes, you all know about this, but I would like to recite it, and if you could join me, it's fine. It goes like this: together we see a world when people unite and take action to create a lasting change in the globe, in our community, and within ourselves. It's a great philosophy. The friends, with that philosophy in mind, I would like to welcome each one of the delegates coming from all the 3 districts, from different parts of this Wisconsin city and other cities. I would like to welcome a very special guest of ours, and he is Dr. Carr. He is the Director of Performance, Psychology and Team Behavioral Science Clinician for the Green Bay Packers. We have with us today another very special guest for us, my friend, past Director Greg Pott. He is the current trustee and the past Director of Rotary International, and his wife, gracious wife, present here. I would like to welcome each one of the students, exchange team members. Each one of you are welcome to TriCon of 2020-24. I would like to welcome all the guest speakers and, of course, all the guests present here. Friends, let us make this TriCon a memorable one. Thank you. May God bless you.
Thank you, Director Roy. We look forward to hearing from you again before the conference is over, and we welcome you to the excitement of TriCon 2024. All right, now to introduce our keynote speaker for this opening session, I want to welcome back Purveyor Health's CEO, Dr. Chip Wright.
Thank you, Tom. It's my pleasure now to introduce our keynote speaker today, Dr. Chris Carr, Director of Performance Psychology and Team Behavioral Health Clinician for the Green Bay Packers. Before this, he served as the Counseling Sports Psychologist and Coordinator of Sport and Performance Psychology Services at Ascension St. Vincent Sports Performance in Indianapolis. Dr. Carr earned his Ph.D. in Counseling Psychology with a minor in Exercise Science Sports Psychology from Ball State. And in true Rotary fashion, we sat next to each other at lunch, and to say what kind of community we are, Dr. Carr and I discovered that we're neighbors, which means I probably should be home more to realize that. Rotary lunch. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Carr to the stage.
Good afternoon. It's football season. 365 in our world. So I spent this morning, I had 150 reports for our pre-draft process, and the pack is looking pretty good right now, so it's a lot of fun. Now, I'm going to be very attentive to the timer because 20 minutes is usually the time it takes to talk about what I've been doing for the past 30 years. So I'm going to kind of roll around. The purpose of this presentation is to describe the position that I have with the Packers and how the NFL is impacting now the concept of mental health for our players and our staff, and how we're breaking down various stigma to kind of help evolve this field. So, okay. I'm clicking. There we go. I'm going to leave this up real quick just to show you a little bit of the experiences I've had. In summary, I'm a counseling psychologist with training in sports psychology, and I've worked in the world of athletics for the past 30 plus years. I've been very privileged and honored and blessed to have all these experiences that are up on that slide. I've represented Team USA at 2 Olympic Games, the Winter Games in 2002 in Salt Lake City, and the Summer Olympics in Beijing, China in 2008. I have over 30 years in collegiate athletics, including time in the Pac-10 or Pac-12, whatever you want to call it, or the Pac-nothing now, at a little Washington State University. And that was my first job after I completed my doctoral work. And I'll never forget that trip out to Pullman, Washington, and my colleagues saying, "Wow, you're going to be at Washington State. That's awesome. Seattle's so beautiful." And I would say, "Yeah, that's where University of Washington is at." And the first coach I met at Washington State, right on cue, when he introduced me, said, "So you're our new shrink." And I said, "No, coach, I'm your new stretch." And that was kind of started my journey. So you can see all the different places I've been involved in the collegiate spectrum and the professional sports space. Baseball for 5 years with the Kansas City Royals, back in the MLS when it started, Indiana Fever for 10 years, and then 2 NBA teams over a 13-year spread, and then out of the blue in 2017, I get a call from Gary Rugemer, the Director of Player Engagement for the Packers, and that began this journey of my now going into my 7th year with the Green Bay Packers, and to consider that a blessing to be the first full-time psychologist developing a performance psychology program in the most storied franchise in the NFL is like a perfect, not hopefully last chapter, but perfect end of chapter of my career. I've done work with U.S. Navy's Officer Candidate School and have had leadership positions in the past. So it's really a diverse career. I played college football in a Division III school in Indiana. I coached college football at Ball State University in the Mid-American Conference. I worked with college teams at Washington State when Drew Bledsoe was still playing. Ohio State when Eddie George won a Heisman Trophy. But boy, it's just different. It's different here at this most elite level of athletic competition. And that kind of ties in a little bit about my role as a psychologist. This idea of performance psychology, and they say the Director of Performance Psychology for the Green Bay Packers, why did we use that title instead of Director of Mental Health or Director of Mental Wellness? Because in the NFL, everything in these young men's life is about performance. Everything. Their families, their relationships, their self-esteem, their self-efficacy, everything is tied in to the performance on the field on Sundays. Whether it's here in Lambeau or in some of those other cities in the north that we don't like to speak about. And yes, you can kind of grow that NFC North displeasure of other teams. performance psychology as a discipline within the psychology field has kind of come to light in the past 25 years. And these are some descriptors that really tie into the work that I do. We're not afraid to talk about being excellent. We're not afraid to talk about being elite, being at the best of your ability. Not being perfect. The game in sport is not perfect. Life is not perfect. But to strive to be your best performer is part of our goal, and that's to give our players tools to work on that mental side of performance. The performance often occurs in front of others, and yeah, there's 80,000 there in Lambeau, and it's pretty cool. But every mistake you make is in front of others. And now with the increase in social media, you've got others in a whole different dimension. And so knowing how to navigate that. But as performers, that's the key. And you have to meet certain standards. As we go through this draft process now, I talk to a lot of young men who've had wonderful collegiate athletic careers, and some of them will not ever play a snap in the NFL. Because their just performance isn't at the level that's required for the position or the place that they're going to play. That's just a reality that as you move up an elite level, it gets a little bit more specific, and you have to have a certain skill set. You've got to be able to use those skills at a certain point in time. Like when you have to do a presentation to a large group of people, you have to be ready. A month ago, I was not ready. Oh, as a side note, on February 7th, I had my wrist repaired and my right tibia repaired from a ladder fall. I went surgery at Freighter, and now I'll be setting off metal detectors in airports as I move ahead. A month ago, they might have had to wheel me out here, but I'm proud to say I'm on my second day of walking, and so far it's going well. That's consequences. The poor performance on a ladder, it was not intentional, but as I was told in a very sympathetic way by my colleagues, you need a ladder guy. So I'll be hiring soon. You got to have good coping skills, and this is kind of the domain of performance. Now, when I work with the U.S. Navy in their Officers of Canada School, they have to perform. When I was at Arizona State University and consulted with the School of Music, to do an audition for a symphony orchestra is an incredibly stressful environment. You better have some skills to manage that, because when it's time, you have to perform. And when you're a wide receiver for the Green Bay Packers and you run a route and you get separation and our quarterback gets the ball to you, you got to catch it. You got to catch it. And you got to be able to perform in that moment. So this performance psychology field kind of brought me in. Now, truth be told, 40 years ago I worked in inpatient drug and alcohol treatment. And I worked in the addictions field for 4 years. And it was challenging and demanding, and substance dependence is an incredibly scary disease. But I needed to find my niche, and I've been fortunate to find it for this past 30 years. With the Packers, we define mental health based on the World Health Organization's description of mental health. For those psychology folks that are interested, many, many years ago, psychology truly was evolved as a field with 3 specific goals. Number 1 was the identification and treatment of mental health disorders, like mood disorders, anxiety disorders. That was really kind of an emphasis of psychology. The other 2 purposes of psychology years ago was identifying talent in multiple domains and making life better, improving life. Now, what happened to the transition? World War II happened. And our veterans come home with significant psychological and emotional damage. So the focus of funding and everything was about the treatment of mental health care, which isn't a problem. We need to have that. And one of the things that's been very true is we haven't lost the focus on mental health. So our rookies that will be coming in here in a couple of weeks, when I do my introduction, we talk about this is our description of mental health. It's not just the absence of mental illness, it's a state of well-being in which every individual realizes his or her own potential, optimal ability, can cope with the normal stresses of life, along with extra normal stresses of being in a performance domain, can work productively and fruitfully, which in our world is, as Brian Gutekunst has so clearly said, we don't hang banners for divisions in Green Bay. We want to hang bigger banners. Super Bowl is always a target goal. No problem with that. Just like the recent men's basketball that ended, when you start the NFL playoffs, there's 14 teams and one team ends happy. And when the men's basketball tournament started, there were 68 teams and one team ended happy. And having worked with Coach Painter and Purdue for many years, I was hoping to be the Boilers. So we learned this is part of this dynamic. You got to work at that time and be able to make a contribution to the community, which is so phenomenal about Rotary clubs and what they do in the community. It's awesome. I've had opportunities in the past with Kiwanis and other opportunities to speak, but being able to come here into the Green Bay community is helpful because, as I shared earlier, I typically go from home to Lando, and that's about it. I didn't know Main Street Bridge was closed until I got on the other side of it. Fortunately, I knew how to get here. How do we see our players as either having mental health difficulties or diagnoses or not? No, we see our athletes, and I know you're not going to be able to see this, but understand, we see a continuum of psychological health with anybody. That is, you bring an athlete in who is physically at their highest level. They are fast, they are strong, they are athletically gifted, they have talents and skills, they have the intelligence to play the game, and they can measure out at one end of that spectrum where they're an elite NFL athlete, period. But if they twist their leg up a certain way, or they get rolled up in a pile and they tear an ACL, they're going to move down that continuum. It was an event that happened to them that caused that disorder. It's not a comparison kind of where you had two dimensions of either they're healthy or not healthy. It's we're on a dimension. So is our psychological and emotional health. When a player loses a family member, I'm reaching out. When a player is injured, I am part of their rehab. And believe me, my empathy scale has increased greatly over this past 3 months. That isolation, that being dependent on someone else, the immobility, the pain, I can talk about it, but now I know. And that's something that I can help, and some players have reminded me it's a skill set that I've added, unfortunately through a way I chose not to add. We treat our players along a continuum. They are young men, and they are open to criticism. I mean, the stuff that I get shown on social media that's directed at these individuals, it's shocking. But they understand that's part of this job. It's part of being in this performance business. So they accept it. Now we teach them how to learn to manage it and focus on things that they actually control. We do proactive care. We're not waiting for the depression to occur. My position is to develop a program. We have strength and conditioning. We have sports medicine athletic training. We have sports nutrition. We have our player engagement staff. Now we've just added the psychology piece, the performance psychology piece. So these are a few examples kind of how we tie that together. If players meet with me individually, it is confidential. Yeah, right, it's confidential at an organization. No, it's part of my contract. With the NFL, it's my contract. That as a licensed psychologist, individual work I do with players is confidential. Now, communication is important, but you have to navigate that process. And to the credit of the organization, it's never been challenged. Coaches know better than to ask me, what are you guys talking about? All they want to know is, how are they doing, and how can I help? So we're trying to create a culture and educate our coaching staff, work integrated with our medical staff, and really provide an emotional and psychological care basis, the best of all resources. So I wanted to clarify that because when they come in and shut the door in my office, that's confidential. Now, we do a class every week. We call our mindset class. Yesterday, I'm losing track of days. Wednesday, when we had our first class, we had 16 players. This is all voluntary. In the NFL, nothing can be mandated. You cannot mandate counseling. College athletics, a lot of these young men get mandated to go see a therapist because they had a positive drug test or they maybe had a behavioral episode. They have to get mandated. In the NFL, you cannot do that. So it's all voluntary. And so what we want to do is create a space where players see this as an asset, as a strength. And it's particularly for men, which is difficult to be communicative, specifically about emotional issues. We want to create a space for that. Last year, 68% of our active roster utilized me on an individual basis. So we're growing. And that's about issues in their life and stress management and performance issues and building confidence. So we get a class because Classway is a great way to teach. The night before games, we do a focus session, which is basically a fun guided imagery exercise. Get them all in a room with pillows and sweats and let them get some clarity. Let them get some calm. Let them get a focus on what they're going to do the next day. And we all hear about things like visualization, imagery. We make it as part of their routine. I have a bulletin board. We use every access to create. And then in December of 22, we built a meditation room. Meditation in football doesn't make sense, but boy, when you start teaching your mind and your body how to work together, you become a much better football athlete. Because if your mind gets ahead of you, where your body is at, you're going to increase the likelihood of mistakes. And if the body has arousal and attention and energy that the mind is not encapsulating or able to process and focus, you're going to make mistakes. So we're teaching them about mindfulness and meditation, and it's cool as anything because you'll see sometimes in pregame warm-ups some of our players sitting under the goalpost, doing their reflections. This room creates a space. It's very zen. It's really cool. We put it together, and we're getting utilization. We're going to create tools and places for our players to take time, to reset, to refocus, and gain that self-awareness. The mental skills piece, the sports psychology piece, that's part of my toolbox. That's why, as a psychologist, I wanted to train in that area, so I have those tools to be able to utilize with our players. So goal setting, emotional regulation, visualization, concentration skills, pre-performance routines. These are all cognitive behavioral therapies, but they're also utilized in a performance domain. So as a psychologist, that's a skill set that I can bring in that maybe the other professionals in the building don't have that access. And then the mental health issues, we have a community resource. We have the clinicians in the community that specialize, and so players know they don't have to come talk to the old white guy if they don't want to. But if they just say, I would feel more comfortable talking with someone else, then I've vetted that out, so that person's not asking for autographs or tickets or signed jerseys. I have to be very careful because I have to protect our players. As I said, I'm integrated, so if you look on the website or you look on a player program, I'm under medical. The Packers will put their licensed professionals under medical. And we have a mental health and wellness team that meets once a month. There's our head strength coach, our head athletic trainer, our director of rehab, our director of security, myself, our head internal team physician, and we have a team that meets once a month just to monitor to make sure we're handling the situations that may be present, something that we may see out there. We have a mental health emergency action plan that I've had to access 2 times in my 6 years here, where we've had a player in distress. And we have a plan, and we talk about the plan, and we role play the plan, so that we're able to access and provide that player the best level of help. And our integrated resources in the community are key to that process. They're especially essential. We do injury update meetings. As I said, I'm part of every player's rehab. We did a support group a few years ago. We had a number of players on IR that were not going to be coming back for the season, so we got them together. It was such a powerful support system for these players to have. Because the isolation, not feeling part of the team, anytime I felt when you're not able to engage at the level and the specific tasks that you have to accomplish, there's an isolation. We want to make sure we don't lose them, bring them back in. I'm at every practice. I'm on the sidelines of games. I travel. It is integrated. It is 7 days a week starting July 18th. But as Mark Twain said, if you love what you do, you never work a day in your life. And that's where I found my blessing. and I achieved my performance goal because I'm at the last minute on my last slide. So for me, you don't know how big of a, I've done lots of presentations before, and when I do it with my colleagues, they're like, they sit with a gong in the front row because they know I can get going. So, but I wanted to introduce you to the program here. In 2019, NFL mandated in the last collectively bargained agreement, every NFL team must have a designated team clinician. There are some teams that bring a clinician from the community into the cafeteria and put him at a table 2 half days a week. They are meeting the minimal standard. 7 teams have made this a full-time commitment. Kansas City, us, I like to say us in Kansas City, but Kansas City beat us by a few months, going full-time. And then the Giants, the Bills, the Commanders, the Ravens, and the Bears. And they really need it for sure. Not that I have any, bias in the NFC North, but Carl is a good friend and colleague. 7 of us have become full-time in this role, and I think that's going to be the trend. That's a trend that's happening in the NBA, and Major League Baseball is continuing. We're going to see an advent of mental health, but I think what we're also going to see is this incorporation of performance psychology, teaching people how to be effective with goal setting, teaching people how to manage stress, particularly with the increased stressors of social media and all of the other things that change along with us. This has been, for me, just kind of a wonderful journey. Ted Lasso, if you've ever watched the series, is a wonderful series. They engage sports psychology consultants during this process. In fact, there's this episode, if you haven't seen the Dart episode, where Ted is telling the former owner of the team, Walt Whitman's quote, "Be curious, not judgmental." Professional athletes face a lot of judgment. There's a lot of judgment. So my role is to be the curious and interested and supportive and empathic resource for these players to navigate so they become curious about themselves and don't get into the self-judgment that oftentimes disrupts their career. It's an awesome opportunity to be here in front of you and talk a little bit about my role. It's with the Packers. We love having folks in this community. I didn't realize until I started this position full-time that I have a lot of friends that a trip to Lambeau is their bucket list item. So we've become the Carr Hotel during season with our friends and family, which is just awesome to have them be part of a football Sunday in Lambeau. So I hope you have a wonderful conference. I appreciate the invitation to be here. Wish you all the best in all of your communities and as you move forward in your businesses and careers. Thanks so much.
Chris, thank you very much. Such an important issue for all of us as parents. Well, it goes throughout our society. So we thank you for that. I want to let you know before you go that in recognition of your service, TriCon24 is going to make a contribution in your name to Polio Plus Fund or Foundation. We're going to wipe that out in 2026, I heard.